Earlier this week, a group of former CEOs co-authored an op-ed in Fortune explaining why they say they are voting for Vice President Harris. Joining us right now is the former chairman and CEO of American Airlines, Doug Parker, also Yale School of Management Senior Associate Dean for Leadership Studies, and the CNBC contributor Jeff Sonnenfeld joins us. Doug and Jeff, thank you for joining us. Doug, make the case. We've talked about it a lot on the show. We've had a number of CEOs come on, but most of them have not actually run public companies, which I want to talk about, or at least still are running public companies. I want to talk about that in a second. But why are you making this argument?
Well, yeah, thanks, Andrew. Good to see you again. So, look, what happened is earlier this week, Jeff sent an article around to a number of us. He sends notes to, and one of those notes talked about how CEOs right now are unable to talk. It's a difficult environment. The country's polarized. It makes it very hard for anyone to make a statement because they could alienate their customers, their employees. We all understand that. But it also talked about how now there's fear of retaliation. I used to note back to Jeff and said, gosh, it's just a crying shame because, we all, as you do, talk to a lot of other CEOs. What we know is those CEOs who are important in a election where the economy is the most important thing, what I know is the vast majority of those CEOs, that certainly the ones that I'm in contact with regularly, are not going to vote for Donald Trump. And it's not so much because of economics, it's because of leadership. And most of those CEOs are, not hedge fund managers, not billionaire entrepreneurs, or the people you talk to at earnings days who work their way up through organizations with leadership skills, with servant leadership skills. And those are things like bringing people together, having integrity, having, global strategic thought and open minds. And they look to Trump as the antithesis of a lot of those things. It makes it very difficult for them as leaders to support someone that does, but they can't say those things. So I just mentioned that to Jeff, said, it's been troubling me. He said, well, what if I get a couple of people to talk with you or at least could stand up with you? I'm like, oh, fair enough. And, within 3 hours, there were 20 people signing on to a letter. So I know this is true. I obviously can't speak for everyone else, but I can tell you what I know from the people I do talk to, and it's a real issue. It's a real concern. It's a leadership concern, much more so, I think, than kind of a policy or economic policy concern for most of them.
Doug, let me ask you this, and then I'll go to Jeff. If you look back 20 years ago, it appeared that CEOs of publicly traded companies would donate to different candidates in their own name. In some cases, they would speak up if they thought that there was a candidate that was more, that they liked more than another. Do you think something has fundamentally shifted in this campaign? Is it about former President Trump specifically? Is it about a different culture that's more tribal? Is it a combination of those things? Do you see him as being responsible for that? How do you see this?
Two things I'd say. Definitely more polarized. So there's just no. Instead of making a statement like that in the past, might have sounded like, okay, well, this is a business. This party seems more business-like, so it's something we can do. Now it doesn't feel that way. It just feels polarized, and it feels like you're picking sides. No one wants to do that because you just end up making people angry. So I think that's that. And I think, and the other thing I'd say is, it's just a change in the Republican Party over time. A party that once was more in line with the politics of business, which are frankly. Fiscal conservatism, some social progressivism, and some global free market thinking. And as that has changed, it makes it harder and harder for business people to speak up.
Hey, Jeff, how do you think about this? And I will ask the question almost on behalf of Joe here, which is, what do you think about some of the business leaders like an Elon Musk or Bill Ackman or others who have supported President Trump very publicly and may have put themselves, to the degree you believe it's at risk, in terms of the social circles that they travel in, or, as you would say, the cocktail parties they can go to, or whatever?
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for the invitation and great question. I haven't seen anybody with diminished interest in buying Teslas. I think they might be critical of positions Elon Musk takes. Frankly, some of Musk's biggest critics are criticizing him on his platform X. They're still using the old Twitter. So I haven't seen those that kind of retribution that we saw when President Trump, as president, went after iconic companies. You name it, the companies which are great global brands like Harley Davidson, whose symbol is the American eagle. He went after them just because they couldn't get product into Europe because Europe had retaliatory trade barriers in response to his. So he had to shut down a plant in Kansas City, open it in Thailand to get product into bikes into Europe. And Trump told everybody buy the competition, which was all non-U.S. Same thing. He told them, boycott Amazon, which competition, of course, is Alibaba, not in U.S.
Right.
And he went after Delta, went after Boeing, went after Ford, GM. He went after these great iconic companies. So no, I haven't seen anything like that. But I will say,
do you think there's a silencing on both sides, or no?
No, but I'm so glad you raised the silencing issue. If you go back, as you wisely did, 20 years, you go back 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50, we went back 100 years. And guess what we found is that almost since Lincoln, because these union leagues in New York and Philadelphia and New Haven and all were business clubs to support the nascent Republican Party, is that for a century, the Republican Party has been, very much supporting the candidate, the presidential candidate, the GOP, from the business community. And guess what's happened now is starting in 2016, where it used to be at least half were financially supporting and vocally supporting. It fell to zero. Not a single fortune. And we, as you know, put it in all this data in the New York Times back in June, and they republished it this week. Right. Is not a single major CEO, the Fortune 100s were supporting until Elon Musk came along, just one. In 2016, right. It used to be half. Same thing in 2020. It was just 2, and now until Musk, it's now 0 again. Other than Musk, that's the big break. But on the Democrat side, we're hard pressed to find any. I mean, there are actually more now Democrats speaking up, from the CEO of Box to Lazard Frere I think you can find several that are speaking out. But in the past, you had the CEO of DuPont a long time ago, Irving Shapiro did in the 70s, and the CEO of IBM, Tom Watson Jr. did. Hardly any Democrat side CEO spoke up, but Republicans always did, and that's what's different. That's who went silent, is no Republican support for CEOs, Doug, and that's what the data's showing. Right.
Doug, what kind of feedback have you gotten since this article's been published? And by the way, I would remind folks, President Trump actually helped you and your airline in the middle of COVID with a big relief package at the time. And I'm curious if folks have come to you and said, you've gotten good reaction, you've gotten bad reaction, and what do you personally think about the actual economic policies of the two candidates?
Yeah, thanks. Most of the feedback I've gotten is positive. It may be biased. Most people that are contacting me are friends and others. Look, this has nothing to do with American Airlines. I'm not associated with American Airlines. This has everything to do with leadership, in my mind, and leadership of our country. And I saw I think it was a Republican congressman the other day talking and trying to explain this. Well, just don't shoot the message. Don't worry about the message, not the messenger. The messenger, of course, being Donald Trump, and asking us to ignore the fact that the way the message is being delivered and who the messenger is. The messenger here is the President of the United States. And, when we send the wrong message through that messenger, think about the other messages we're sending. The messages we send to the rest of the world about who we are, the messages we send to each other about how we're supposed to treat each other and how we should behave as a society, and the messages we send our kids about who they should be and who we want to look up to. Those are real messages that I think are real concerns, and they're concerns for people that have gotten to be heads of big companies. By doing those things the right way. And that's what I think, again, it's less about policies. Look, I am no spokesperson for the Harris-Walz campaign. I will happily tell you that, the regulations that have been put in place by this administration on business, I think are much worse for business than they were in the Trump administration. And those things are important. But those things you can go fight. Values are more important. Leadership's more important. And, I think the right thing to do right now, what I know, speaking for myself, but also what I know as I speak to others, that this is what matters to people that lead, that understanding that leadership does matter, and that this election's about leadership. And that's why people, that are now in the jobs that I used to have, I know, are highly concerned.